All right, guys. Happy Thursday.
Move over more.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right. Oh, I forgot to turn on our light too. So happy Thursday. We are here live for Thursday's edition of Chopper History, sponsored by Indian Motorcycles and Law Tigers. Shout out to them for sponsoring motorcycling history and keeping it going. Let's see, we have good morning, Stephen Drago. Yes, it is rainy and cold here today, but it is what it is. Andrew from New Jersey, Shannon Poor checking in. So today's guest, Marilyn Stemp, is one of my favorite ladies, and probably yours too.
Me and Marilyn go way back. When her and her husband had magazine.
Iron Trader.
No, Ironworks.
Ironworks.
Ironworks magazine. I was on the cover of their magazine several times, and when magazines were really big, her magazine was right at the top of the heap.
Yeah.
And since then, of course, everybody knows what happened with the magazine industry. And
yeah.
But Marilyn has moved on, and she's doing great.
Yeah, well, we'll let her tell.
Yeah,
we'll let her tell.
She can tell you her story.
Yeah, but
better coming from her than us.
Yeah. So, and give a shout out. I see, Harry. Good morning, Harry.
Hey, Harry, how's it going?
Wenton, Jeremy, and Kevin Olson.
Kevin.
So, thank you guys all for checking in and constantly watching our show. We love doing this, and we love sharing our stories and connections and people that we know. And like we said, this is what's keeping motorcycling going. So shout out once again to Indian and Law Tigers.
Yeah.
But all right, let's get to it. Let's bring on Marilyn. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Marilyn. Hi, guys. Nice to see you too.
Yeah. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I have to really just thank you too for doing this, what you do to keep us all connected. Early in this whole pandemic business, everybody was going nuts. We didn't know how to stay connected to our friends. We couldn't be together,
Yeah.
And what you guys have done with the show is just keep us together. And I just want to give you big props for that. It's been really a wonderful way to hear some stories that, Dave doesn't usually tell, to prompt some ideas and remember some things. And it's just been great. So thanks for making the effort.
Yeah, well, he loves to tell his stories because they're always good.
Yes.
Marilyn, I've got lots more stories, but unfortunately, I'd be a little reluctant to tell them all on the air.
Yeah, that's probably best if we just keep it PG.
Yeah.
Right.
So Marilyn, I want to get to this first because I was just overwhelmed at how cool this was. You just got back from King of the Baggers.
Oh man, that was the best couple of days ever. And probably part of it is because we haven't been together with our friends, in the longest time. But it was just, I think I said to somebody this morning, you're at Moto America. So it's like a, MotoGP kind of thing, and it's super bikes and that certain sound of those bikes. And then you're standing there and all of a sudden the V-twins start up and everybody's like, whoa, what is that? Because it's not the sound you usually hear there. And, when the super bikes practiced, their teams watched, their families were there. When our bike started up, everybody ran to the fence. Everybody was like, what the heck,
That's cool. Yeah, I talked to Rob Bidos on Monday, and he was saying that all the GP teams were right there watching and loving it and interested in it.
Definitely.
Really cool.
And there was such a spirit of camaraderie there among the 12 or 14 teams that showed up. I mean, the guys, they want to win, they're racers.
Yeah.
And they help each other out. But in the fine spirit of like Don Tilley, he always said stuff like, yeah, I help him out at the track, but I don't help him too much.
Right.
Right.
We all want to win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it was Saddleman who told me their seat was on everybody's bike because everybody called them to make a seat. So they were going to be in the winner's circle no matter what happened.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But at the last minute, I think Roland Sands called and asked for a seat, and Dave Eckert said, well, yeah, I'll send you one over, but he didn't have time to shave it down or anything, so it was like a 14-pound seat.
Well, Roland is tied up with Mustang. Mustang should have done him a seat.
Yeah.
Mustang is reluctant to get involved in this stuff, and I hope they're listening.
I do too.
Because they're missing out.
And
Yeah.
Saddleman has been there for years. Their wall in the shop is covered with the pictures of racers they've given seats to for decades.
Tom's an awesome guy.
Yep.
Was this the Roland St. I mean, Alan Ness, yeah.
Yeah, by Rundelet built that and had tons of Arlen Ness parts. And one of the coolest things about that bike is almost everything there was bowed on. So that was cool because that's aspirational. If you like that bike, you can buy that stock and you can put most of that stuff on there and go racing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was talking to Rob about on Monday is I like that, obviously these are highly modified motorcycles, but that they all started off life as a bagger. They weren't custom frames that they, bolted on some little teeny bags to make them look like a bagger. They were all baggers to begin with. They were all FLs or Indian Challenges to start off. And I think that's really cool because that sets goals for people, with performance-wise that, hey, you know what? Maybe I can't afford it now, but I'll slowly, do the exhaust, do cams, slowly get up there to be able to say, hey, you know what? My bike could compete at that.
And, Jody, what's the original reason people went racing? I mean, the George Smiths in the history of our industry, right? They went to prove the product on the racetrack.
Right.
And then put it into production, right? So, maybe we're not proving new race product necessarily with this particular effort, but let's face it, all these aftermarket companies that participated, they want people to see their parts on these bikes, the regular spectators, if we're allowed to have spectators next time, but for people to see how these parts can run and how they can make their own bike more fun and work better. Yeah, they want to sell parts,
I'll bet Drag Specialties definitely this week has sold more performance stuff than ever.
Oh, there's no question. And that was honestly the goal of it. What they were trying, they're up front. They reached out to a bunch of vendors and they said, hey, you guys can participate in this. It's going to cost you some money because, they had to take their crews out, build their bikes, but it's marketing. It's promotion,
Yeah. They got to be just clicking their heels ecstatic at how well it went and, how just they couldn't have planned the finish better.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
It was literally like, everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, I had all the confidence in the world in Indian because I own an Indian Challenger and I know its performance and everything. And I'm overly excited that, how well of a bike it is. But, there's always variables. And boy, the end of that, with, the Indian going off the edge of the track and then Holly just sweeping right by and then back and forth. It was like,
It was really exciting. And it was, more of that Harley Indian War stuff, which I think is great. It's wonderful for the industry. It makes it exciting. You don't want the same people to win all the time. You got to have the back and forth.
Right. And exactly that. Like those Indians from the practice Friday that I saw, it was like they dominated. I mean, they were so far ahead that I just thought like, oh, man, this is just going to be a sweep. So it was good. And then the whole thing with Frankie Garcia, him going end over end, it was like, no, that's an Indian out. Like, and I just was like, to see him back in the race was awesome.
Well, and it's not racing if there's not drama, right? So that was drama because we looked at his bike and it was all twisted up, sitting back in the pits. We're like, oh my God, what are they going to do? But they worked like you do, overnight, pull it back together. Thankfully, he was okay, which was good. Yeah. And then there was another bit of drama, to give some props to Vance and Hines. So, they're out there, pushing Indian the whole time. And Fueling's bike.
Nick Trask with his transmission.
Oh, yeah.
And the Uber.
Yeah.
That was funny. And then did you hear Fueling's bike blew up? So at the last...
Where they got a quota from...
And that was just because, Vance and Hines had an extra engine. They weren't going to need it. So here you got 3 hours down and the guys are working feverishly to swap out the engine,
That's so cool. And that's like, what brought that up with Rob is I was curious because Fueling is, they're getting bigger and bigger and they, supposedly make such great engine pots and stuff that I was going to watch that bike. And I was so bummed, especially Ben Bostrom was riding it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he's such a legend and such a good rider that, you know, I was watching that bike, and at the end when he was out, I was like, oh man. But as the story unfolds, you find out that they actually didn't have their motor, and it probably wasn't up to their specs.
Yes.
You know? But it makes it all the more for the next one.
For sure, for sure. And, you know, just even some of the riders, you know, I didn't know all these riders before. So, you know, you have like Tyler O'Hara, who was riding the SNS Indian bike, and
which
he knows that track. There he is. Yeah. He knows that track. Frankie Garcia knew that track. I mean, but there are some parts of that track coming, like the corkscrew, what they talk about, where you really can't see. You pop up over and you don't even know. And it's off camber. And I mean, some of that stuff is crazy on a bagger.
Yeah, literally. They said that, which this didn't kind of contradict itself, but it said that Frankie Garcia, which there he is right there, that this was his home track, but he never raced on it. So I don't know how you could, I guess because it's his hometown.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he didn't race there, but I think he's just run there or practiced there or something, because he did seem to know it.
He had to be ecstatic on so many different levels. A, because he got back in the race after that hellish flip, and to still be right out there. I mean, those top three had nothing on anybody else. I mean, nobody else had anything on those three. So
right on.
Still get a podium finish. I mean, at his track, that's got to be just ecstatic. And, like I said before, it makes it all the more for the next one.
For sure. And I want to give props to like the guys from Barnett Cables and Clutches out there. Chance was telling me, my bike's 200 pounds heavier than everybody else's, but it's like the tortoise and the hare, they're going to hang in there and keep going with their Jim's 131, and they just kept going and going. And then the picture you just showed, that was the only Harley dealer that sponsored a bike.
So and that's go ahead. Who's this?
Durango Harley Davidson from Durango, Colorado, and Speed Merchant and the Four Corners Rally. The three of those guys got together and campaigned that bike.
That's really cool. And this so back to that. Where's the picture? This one. So was this was the one that Wheelie Pig?
Yes.
Lackey rode, right?
It is, and we called it the Nest bike because it was mostly done up with Nest bikes, but Rondelet was the one that built it. Yeah,
so he supposedly joined in last minute, and I see some banter back and forth on social media that he was the only one with the radio playing. Floorboards.
Yeah, that's right.
He was dragging his floorboards around every corner.
And man, you could hear him too. I mean, you just stand at the edge of the track and he'd come around.
Yeah, and I thought too that it was very cool because I follow him on social media and stuff. To see somebody like him, I mean, I don't want to say racing isn't his thing, but he's not out there. He's not a professional racer. And for him to be doing this road course was so cool.
Absolutely.
I know his dad's a legend motocross racer. But to see, a guy with the nickname Wheelie Pig on a road course.
What is he, a stunt guy?
Yeah. He's like one of the original wheelie guys on baggers.
And, he's one of those guys who did the hill climb at the Purgatory Ski Resort at Four Corners last year.
Yeah.
And it was hilarious. I mean, can you imagine? We're at the ski resort in the summertime, and they're going the wrong direction up the mountain, right under the ski lift, right? With these shovel heads and all these crazy bikes,
Yeah.
It stopped everybody. The guys on bicycles, the families that were out there just to hang out, everybody stopped and watched these nuts.
He posts some pretty funny videos, him and Justin George, that like he did one just recently of it shows Reebok pump sneakers. Remember those sneakers when you pump the pump? It was like literally an old pair of sneakers, and I mean he's a big kid, like he's heavy set.
Yeah.
And he's like got like an 80s sweatband on, and he's running back and forth like training for the king of the baggers.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see, like I said, real baggers on this race, and to see average, I don't want to say he's an average person, but he's not a professional out there racing.
Right. But
Yeah.
it's approachable. You know, they could do
Right.
it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they did an awesome job with this. It's an awesome idea that they made happen, and especially in a economy like like we are right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It would spend so much more if it had spectators, but
Yeah, next time Rob says, and big props to Drag Specialties for getting the people together and for Fred Fox getting behind this, because they've always supported racing. So
yeah, it is very cool, and I wish I was on the sidelines watching this go by. But the next,
Yeah, we will be at the next one to watch.
yeah,
for sure.
Watch, Jody.
Yeah, right. Anybody wants me to ride? Yeah. So I also want to talk to you about a program that you and I both have a passion for, is the Striders.
Oh, yes, the all kids bike, like getting little kids on bikes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just such a no-brainer to me. I mean, if we get them on two wheels when they're little, there's a much greater likelihood they're going to ride motorcycles when they grow up.
Yes, which benefits all of us.
It does. It does. And the whole industry at large. It's that rising tide thing, The more people that are on two wheels, the better it is for everybody.
Yeah.
And starting them when they're little, kids just don't ride bikes like they used to, Even, I was a little kid a really long time ago, but my kids are more like Jody's age, and they would ride bikes around the neighborhood or ride to the swimming pool with their friends and stuff, and it isn't that long ago that we kind of, I don't know, quit putting kids on bikes.
When we were kids, I mean, I rode my bike everywhere. Your parents never drove you around.
No.
If you didn't walk, you were on your bicycle.
Yep.
Every kid had a bicycle.
Yeah, it was your first vehicle.
Yeah.
That's a good one. It was.
And every kid that rode a bicycle pretended it was a motorcycle at some point.
Yes. We put cards in the spokes so it would make
exactly.
noise.
The balloons in the spoke.
Yeah, for sure. So, all kids bike, that's the whole concept there. They want to put these little bicycle riding like curriculum in kindergarten class in public schools all over the country. And, so the teacher learns how to teach the kids, in a paced, safe way. They get little helmets, they get little pedal kits. So once they get good at the duck walkie thing, then they put the pedal kits on them and kids learn to do that. And really, you don't have to teach them. As soon as you put the bikes out there and the kids put a leg over, they just take off. I mean, it's kind of a natural thing. So
I'm a firm believer in it, and I think that it's a great thing, regardless of if they get a motorcycle in the future. It's getting them outside. It's getting them to do things with other little kids instead of being in front of a computer and watching video games and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And, there's a confidence building aspect to operating a vehicle, to being on your bike and going somewhere away from that protective parental thing.
Yeah.
I watched a bunch of kids down at Charlotte Motor Speedway a couple years ago when they did a little Strider event down there, and families came out, and the parents, I mean, honestly, these little kids were way down that racetrack, like a quarter mile away, and everybody's totally comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Because, they're not going to get hurt. They're in a closed course. But the kids have that autonomy and that confidence and that boost. Look what I can do, you know?
That's cool.
Yeah, it is.
So tell me about what you guys did at the Fall Foliage Run and how you boosted your program there. I want to hear about that.
So we host a charity event every year, and normally it's a whole weekend event, which you've come to it before, Marilyn. But this year we had to break it down to one day for obvious reasons.
And this is a hamster event.
Yeah, it's a private invitation only.
It's a private event.
But so we honestly have been kind of looking for a charity that we can be involved in. Not to take away from any other charities, but I don't want to just give somebody our money and then that's it. We never hear anything. We never see anything, nothing. And we don't raise that much money that, $10,000 to cancer research. What am I buying? 5 minutes of research? And not to, like I said, not to take anything away from that, but we just thought we like to normally give to an individual that whether they were in a motorcycle accident or cancer, something that struck them. Last year we gave to Donnie Smith's brother, who had, what kind of cancer?
Well, he had some rare disease.
Yeah. So we give to
And the year before that was the Shadley nephew.
Yep.
Who crashed real bad in Sturgis.
Right. So
and he had to be airlifted from South Dakota to here, which was a unbelievable cost.
Yeah. So we like to give to stuff that we see, that's directly related. So we weren't sure what to do this year, and I randomly got a card from Ryan, the president of Strider, thanking or congratulating me for getting into the Hall of Fame, which Marilyn is also a Hall of Famer. And I thought, you know what? That would be to sponsor a school would be so cool. So we kind of talked about it and we're like, yeah, all right, our goal is $4,000 because that's how much you need to sponsor a school to get them started on getting bikes and the equipment and teaching them and everything. So that was our goal. And within the first half an hour of our event, I happened to talk to the right person, which was John McCarthy. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to sponsor a whole school. So right off the bat, we raised $4,000. And then throughout the day, we had a poker run and people were also generous and gave more money. And we were able to get enough to sponsor 2 schools.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. In just one day.
Yeah. So we'll sponsor the Halifax school, which is in this town that our shop is in. And also the Middleborough School, which is just right next door. And it's the town that I live in, and my nieces both go to that. One goes to it now, and the other one will next year. So I thought, perfect. They'll be able to take advantage of this program.
Oh, that's awesome. And, Jody, I want to give you props, too, because when we started this, actually, this is Dave's fault. When we started the Tiny Custom program where we would, send these little stock Strider bikes to builders, I approached Dave the first year and I said, Dave, I have this crazy idea. What do you think? If I sent you a tiny Strider, would you customize it? And he said, oh yeah, don't worry, Jody will do that.
Yeah, and I was like, thanks a lot, Dad. Thanks for volunteering. As if I don't have enough to do.
Right. But you did it, and there it is. Look at that little beautiful thing. I mean, anyone would be, thrilled to have their little child on a pair of its painted Strider. Come on, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But this whole program is cool. So does the money for this, it goes to schools?
Yes. And so we weren't sure how we were going to do it. It was sort of organic. It just kind of happened. We do a breakfast, a charity breakfast in Sturgis each year. And so Strider stepped up and said, hey, let me give you a couple little bikes for your auction. And then they were going to give me 6. And I said, well, 6 of anything is too many for an auction. So I was trying to think of a way to make those 6 special. And that's how it ended up becoming like the custom program. We peeled some off and sent them to you guys. Rick Fairless, Paul Yaffe, Brian Fuller. Who else was in that first year? I don't remember exactly.
The first one, so Rick Fairless, myself, Kirk Taylor, Brian Fuller, Paul Yaffe, Motorcycle Missions, and Pat Patterson.
Yeah, Pat Patterson's Tiny Strider I bought at auction, and it's hanging in my tiny house up in the ceiling in my bathroom. So. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. The idea there was to, amp up the value of those little guys by, the custom builders who would alter them. And then once we auctioned them, that money would roll into more school sponsorship. So that's how it all happened. And I ended up getting them placed at the Meekum auction in Las Vegas. Ron Christensen there with Meekum. He thought it was kind of a fun idea, and he was on board with the concept of All Kids Bike. And he said, look, yeah, bring them out to the auction. We'll sneak them in the morning, when we do the charity stuff. And so they made a lot more money there than they would have, if I had just done them at my breakfast.
Yeah.
So that's been awesome. On. Yeah. So all that money does go right back into sponsoring more schools.
I think it was it Jessie Combs? Yeah, there's hers in the middle. Did hers go for like $10,000?
Yes, 11,000. And so that was remarkable. And,
Yeah, it was.
Was that where did that get off? Was that at Meekum, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was last year at Meekum. They only had room, we had a big class last year. They only had room for us to put 3 of them up. So it was Gilby's and Brian Clark's and Jesse's. And between the 3 of those, we sponsored 4 schools. I mean, it was just remarkable.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Yeah, hers was wicked cool, and so was Chris Summons.
So Chris was sitting next to me at the auction, and I had asked her if she would do one for 2020, and she was so busy. And then during the auction, we all started getting emotional and everything, and she just grabbed me by the arm and she said, "I'm doing one of those little bikes for you. It's going to be a mini Effie. I'm on." So
yeah, it was pretty cool. I really liked hers. I thought it was neat. She had like the little teeny saddlebags and everything.
Her cannonball number.
Yeah, yeah. Which I think she's 90. She 99? No, she's somewhere in the 90s, I think is her number. I can't tell in that picture. It's too small.
Yeah.
Yeah, hers was wicked cool. And Jesse's was really cool too.
Absolutely.
Hers was cool with the white tires and everything.
Yeah, and the idea there was since she and Terry were in Yucca Valley, California, where they live. That's where she wanted the school to be sponsored. So
cool. I didn't know that's cool. That makes it all the more special.
Yeah, and Gilby and Lisa, they just delivered bikes to up near, is it River Falls, Wisconsin, where they live, Dave?
I'm not sure. Is it no, Minnesota, doesn't they?
They live in Wisconsin.
Oh, do they? It must be right over the line.
I was just going to say it's close to Minnesota.
Because I know it's close to Minneapolis.
Yeah.
But just yesterday, their bikes were delivered to the little school there for all kids' bike.
Oh, wow, that's cool. Great.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I thought, too, this is something like I want to be involved in. I want to see the little kids on the bikes. I want to, see it firsthand and be able to come back and tell, the Hampsters, hey, this is where your money went. Like,
for sure.
Kids. And, most of the Hampsters, as you know, are somehow in the motorcycle industry. So it might be a school here that we're supporting, but they might go and buy Allen Ness pots, for their bike when they get older. So
absolutely.
Hopefully this does benefit the whole industry. But it also, like I said, it's just great for little kids to be on bicycles because you don't see it very often anymore.
Well, when your programs get delivered, like you'll go to those little schools and you'll just hear these little kids squealing with delight as they leap on these little bikes. It's just so cool to be there. So,
did you sponsored one of the Belfouche, correct? In South?
Yeah, that was just another emotional decision, and you see these little kids in some of these towns, rural towns that don't get a lot of attention.
Yeah.
It just seemed like
this.
Yeah. And then honestly, last year at this time, it was the combined funds from the Flying Piston Breakfast and the Buffalo Chip raises some money that kind of rolled all together. And we did 3 little rural schools up here in South Dakota and delivered those all on one day.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was Faith and Lemon, and the third town escapes me, but we loaded them all in the van at like 5 a.m. and took off. And the staff of the Chip, we visited the 3 schools, and it was just so empowering to see these little kids just, actually get some attention and for the teachers to opt in and kind of choke up at the thought that somebody thought about them and wanted to help the school out,
Yeah. Now, how many bikes are in, per school? How many bikes do they get?
I think it's somewhere between 22 and 25, depending on the population.
Yeah.
And they teach them how to maintain the bikes, and they will last up to 5 years. And some of the schools, we use them for kindergarten and first grade PE. And so you can touch hundreds of kids in a 5-year period with this one little fleet of bikes.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's lasting.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you are in South Dakota right now at the Buffalo Chip?
Yeah. Maybe for another week. When I was out for King of the Baggers, it snowed here. And then yesterday it was like 46 and it melted, so my timing was perfect. I got back and the snow was gone.
I was gonna say, are you gonna stick it out and be out there for the winter?
No way.
Yeah, you guys get some harsh winters out there.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite of like a snowbird. So I go back to North Carolina in the winter and I hide out there until like March or April, you know.
Does
okay.
the buffalo chip must look so barren without people?
Yeah, it's really different here, but you know, one of the reasons I live out here for so many months is because the Black Hills are just awesome. And you know,
Yeah.
most of the people in motorcycling only see the Black Hills during the Sturgis rally, but oh, you know, June, July, getting up into August, and especially September is a fabulous month here. It's just so beautiful here, you know, and it's wide open spaces. I just feel great when I'm here. It's just, there's room and space, and don't look at the COVID numbers right now, but outside of all that, it's a great place to be.
Believe it, please.
Yeah. So tell us what you're doing at the Buffalo Chip.
Oh gosh, you know, I'm a consultant here, so they've become my biggest clients since my magazine went away. So the year after my magazine went away, Woody hired me to do a daily newspaper during the rally from the Buffalo Chip. So just during the rally for 8 straight days, a daily newspaper that would happen. And so honestly, a woman my age had no business taking a job like that because it about killed me. But it's kind of like childbirth. I did it the next year and the next year and the next year. I kept coming back to do it again, and because it was so much fun. And I kept getting more jobs to do every year. So one of those jobs was handling the logistics to bring the motorcycles in for Motorcycles is Art, curated by Michael Lichter. So the custom bike show. So I'd get to talk to 30 or 35 new builders every year, bring their bikes in, get to know them, get their bikes back home, you know, work with Daily Direct Haul Bikes to make that all happen. And they've been an awesome sponsor in that project, you know, bringing the motorcycles here, picking them up all over the country, getting them here, returning them back.
Yeah.
So that was just great fun because I got 30 new friends every year, or, you know, got to reconnect with a bunch of builders I hadn't seen in a while. And then, you know, doing the newspaper and then taking on all the advance work for the bike shows here at the Chip. That's another job that kind of came my way. And so, I don't know, I just find like the longer I was here, the more I got to do. And, you know, so now the Chip is my biggest client. And I can work from anywhere, but it's much nicer working here with the staff and just being boots on the ground. You know, things are more efficient when you're here. But I still do all my freelance work for the mainly the industry magazines now, because like Dave said earlier, you know, there aren't that many magazines to write for anymore.
Yeah.
But I cover stuff for the Dragon Parts magazines and for MPN and Dealer News and just my own blog, Iron Trader News. I juice that every day with all the stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm never bored. Does that count?
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, it is. And it's cool because it keeps you in the loop, in the industry, and you still get to travel. You still are at Sturgis, obviously, every year, and going to King of the Baggers.
Oh, yeah. And like, you know, that's the coolest thing, just bringing back Iron Trader News, which was our original title, and keeping that online as my own publication. I'm still media. So I could go to Moto America and say, hey, I'm going to cover King of the Baggers, you know, let me in as media. So they did.
No, that's great.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that if you're in the motorcycle industry, no matter how old you are, you never get bored.
Oh, absolutely. You're so right. And what is retirement? I mean, why would I leave all my friends and doing the thing I love? I mean,
right.
that would be dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, if I retired, you know, I'd be doing the same thing I'm doing now.
How did you?
You know?
Absolutely. No question.
Hey, go ahead.
I wanted to say, because Dave knows this guy, one of the people I visited on the West Coast when I was out there was Gary Bang.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. You know him?
He is an awesome guy. You know, Gary Bang, Gary was one of the very first guys that I ever dealt with in business. When I had my little teeny shop out behind my father's house when I started in 1970, I became a Gary Bang dealer. And I used to look forward to the packages that would come from UPS, and he'd have, you know, a handwritten receipt open up all those little packages. And then, as years went on, Gary and I became really good friends. Gary was a hamster for a long, long time. We went to Sturgis together every year for many, many years. And then I introduced him to our good friend, Don Nolan, who's our tattoo artist. Next thing you know, Gary was flying back and forth to St. Paul all the time getting tattoos. But I miss seeing Gary. I saw him a few years ago. I think when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame a number of years ago, but we haven't seen him since. But Gary is an awesome guy. I'd love to see him again.
Yeah, it was really great to visit with him. And, I feel like if we don't retain the stories of guys like him, we're going to lose this history that we have. And, it was just an opportunity to pop in and, he's been a little bit of a hermit. He hasn't, but when we got talking about things like Nolan, I didn't know Nolan had tattooed Gary.
Oh, yeah.
And Nolan.
Yeah. So that was just bizarre to put all these little pieces together.
Yeah.
And he talked about how Harley Davidson sued him. Like back in the day, everybody was knocking off the decals and the patches and the number one and the jewelry and all that stuff. But I guess Gary was more successful than most of them, so they kind of made an example out of it.
Yeah, right.
But, as you say, what a sweetheart of a guy. He had no animosity about that. It was more like they were protecting their brand. They were doing business.
Yeah.
It's what they had to do. But a couple years later, when they needed a dealer in that part of the world, that part of California,
right,
they brought him on board, and he ran a successful dealership for a number of years, and everything was cool. It's not like he, said anything bad about the whole process. It's just what happened and how it was.
Now, whereabouts is he right now?
And near Atascadero, near Paso Robles, Central California.
So he's kind of in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Going up the coast.
Yeah.
How old do you think Gary Bang is?
Well, Gary's in his late 70s.
Yeah, I was a gentle lady. I didn't ask him his age.
Yeah, no, Gary was almost as old as Holland. So
yeah, I was thinking 80.
He's got to be close to 80.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. But he looked great and he sounded good and had lots of stories to tell. We could have talked forever.
Yeah.
That's cool. That was like my point of the show in the beginning.
We should have Gary Bang on our show.
Yeah, you should.
There you go.
I should call him.
Yeah.
Do it.
When we're done, text me his phone number.
Okay.
But that was my point is, back in the pandemic, the beginning of it, I should say, we were really slow for like 2 or 3 weeks. And, I don't want to say GP and I would twiddle our thumbs because we had plenty of projects here to do, but we were just kind of like, man, this is so slow. And he was telling me stories. And I said, man, Dad, these stories are so cool. And you can't Google them. They're not, you have to hear them firsthand. And I said, let's start a show. Let's do a Facebook Live show. And this is what it's turned into. And people like Gary Bang, my generation doesn't know about him.
Exactly.
They should. You should know about who started an industry and how an industry got started in the players in it. And unfortunately, motorcycling isn't really documented. So you just have to hear it from the people that have lived it.
That's exactly right. And that's why a guy like Gary and his stories and John Reed and Mike Corbin, these are the people that they were there when it happened.
It's funny you mentioned that.
John
We've
Reed.
talked about having John Reed on. And, John is a very good friend of mine, but he's so hard to understand. I don't know if everybody can understand him.
He said between us and him, they wouldn't know what we were talking about.
You'd have to be closed captioning him, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I'm talking on the phone to him, I have to block one ear, close my eyes, and concentrate on what he's saying.
Yeah, it was fun because I popped into Corbin to visit with Mike for a little bit. And while I was waiting for Mike to get off the phone, I'm walking around the showroom. He must have 5 or 6 of Reedy's bikes parked there.
Oh,
really?
Okay.
And I found out because, the wildfires out there, John is a little closer to where the wildfires are, and Mike is in more of a safety zone. So they brought some of John's bikes over just to keep them safe, just and to show them off.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're exactly right, Jody. I mean, a lot of people don't know those stories. And I feel like, I don't know. I feel like they have to be told. And so there are those of us out there kind of beating the drum for that. And I'm glad because it's important.
I'll tell you a quick story about John Reed. This was back in '96. I was designing products for CCI. And of course, John was the main man. I mean, probably 50% of the products that CCI sold, John designed.
So custom chrome, for those of you guys listening and don't know
Yeah.
what CCI is.
And so we went to Germany to the big show over in Germany. And it was a 10-day show. And in one day, my signature changed. It was unreal. We signed 2,500 posters in one.
Oh my God.
And my signature actually changed. And I never got it back to where it was. It's stayed that way ever since. It's crazy. But
that's amazing.
John and I had more fun over there, just doing our thing, him and I together. And it was in Cologne, Germany.
What were the other builders?
Rick Doss was with us.
Right.
But Rick was kind of, I would have to say John Reed had Rick Doss almost in tears many times, busting his balls so hard. And Rick couldn't take it, Rick
or as John would call it, taking the piss.
Yeah. Rick would go to Nace and say, "Tell John Reed to stop busting my balls,"
Grown men saying that.
Oh, yeah. We had more fun.
Yeah, for sure. Those guys are the best. And, you remind me of one show not that long ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, sitting with Skeeter and John Reed.
Yeah.
While they complained about how the young people don't even know what went before and they don't even know what we did. And, they don't pay us any respect. And I'm like, you guys, you have to tell them. It's not osmosis.
Right.
Yeah.
How are they going to know if you don't show them your work or talk about your work?
Yeah.
It's not magic. You got to go tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Skeeter's another one. I mean, he did such cool stuff and such an intelligent guy. But, people turn around and they, if you put Skeeter Todd next to Jesse James, they think he's a, hero. But they don't know about Skeeter Todd, and because there's nobody to teach them exactly that. And that's our point of this show too, is we might have names on here that people don't know, but that's our point, is to bring them on here and let them tell their story, and people to listen to know, hey, you know what? That Marilyn Stemp, she is wicked cool. Now that it just brings more to the industry of people that, we like to have the big names and stuff too. But there's so many more people than those big names.
Yeah, and I remember talk about Skeeter. He was Mr. Stealth, right? Like his bikes were not flashy, but they had like this real stealthy engineering stuff going on, and he did it intentionally. And at the SNS 50th anniversary, where they had the 50 people build bikes, and then they brought them all up to Wisconsin, everybody walked past Skeeter's boring old Sportster. Oh, why is that there? Why is that there? There's nothing special about that. It was so tricky. And he enjoyed it when someone would actually do a double take and say, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm gonna look at that one again." Then he knew he was talking to his equal, somebody who understood it.
Yeah.
But the people that just passed it up, he didn't have the time of day for them because they wouldn't get it anyway.
Yeah. No, Skeeter was a extremely talented, knowledgeable guy. And he was a guy that had no problem sharing his knowledge with anybody that needed help.
Right.
And he helped out a lot of people in the industry. When Brock decided to get into the Harley, the V-twin market, Skeeter was right there. Skeeter helped Brock a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And, now Brock's doing great. He's moving right up there with all his V-twin stuff and his carbon fiber wheels, aluminum swing arms. And, Rolling Thunder, he helped Rolling Thunder.
Definitely.
Orange County, Skeeter was in the background for them, OCC, for many, many years.
Yeah, I mean, they probably wouldn't be a quarter of what they are if it wasn't for Skeeter.
Right. But,
Yeah, and back in the day with Ironworks, I mean, we built project bikes, but they were all Sportsters because we couldn't afford a big twin. We were poor. And without Skeeter, I mean, Skeeter and my late husband Dennis, they buddied up and they had like a meeting of the minds because they were both super frugal, and they had to do things kind of on a shoestring. But Dennis got so much help and so much input from Skeeter on those early project bikes we did. We could never done it without him.
Yeah, that's awesome. Somebody says, how about the Panster?
Oh my God, yeah, the Panster. Who's asking? That's awesome.
Was that Skeeter built?
So obviously a panhead Sportster?
Yeah, a Sportster with a panhead top end.
That bike is in my son's garage. It's with Vincent Stemp right now.
Oh, no kidding.
Cool.
It's not quite done. We really have to finish that bike because Skeeter did advise on that bike. We had help from Don Tilley, built the engine for that bike. It has 2 front heads.
Oh,
and
no kidding. A pan with 2 front heads?
Man, and he actually ran it once, but he ran it off a bottle. I mean, really, it wasn't even hooked up yet. And he built a custom exhaust for it. It has Randy Simpson parts in it. It has Ron Trock parts.
Yeah, it must have Trock cylinders, right?
Yes. So it's a really cool bike. I'm so glad somebody asked about that. That bike.
Marilyn, you got to get on that. Get that thing out there.
What am I sitting here for? I got work to do.
Yeah, forget about South Dakota. You better get back home.
Well, I'm excited somebody asked about that. That is a project we really have to get done. It has really solid cred, motorcycle industry cred.
I bet most all Skeeter's stuff did. And
sure.
What I always found cool was that to the average person they would walk by it, but if you actually looked at it, you could see how much work and how many things were unique.
Definitely, that was his stealth. That was his trickiness.
Yeah, I see. We have a comment from Ron Todd. He said that's how my uncle Skeeter was always willing to help. So I guess obviously must be his.
That must be Tommy Todd's son.
Wow.
Imagine, yeah, Skeeter's brother Tommy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool. We have one of his family members on here.
Yeah.
I see Abby Smith. So Don Smith says, hello, Marilyn. Craig Ferry says, we loved attending the CCI dealer shows in Morgan Hills.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was, the CCI shows in Morgan Hill. One year they gave a lot of tribute to Alan. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Show, and they did a whole thing. And they put a picture. I gave them the picture, and it was a before and after picture of Alan and myself. And it was a picture of the 2 of us in 1975, and then the 2 of us in 2005 or whenever it was.
So we'll say this picture.
Yeah.
And then maybe this one.
No, it was more of a likeness, know. But it was a pretty cool. And they blew it up. They blew the picture up, and it was almost like life size. And that picture is hanging up in Alan's service department at his place right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
This one's such a good one too.
Oh, look at you guys, so cute.
Look at like the cowboy boots and the bell-bottom jeans and Bev's fur coat.
Yeah, because they're Californians and they were freaking freezing wherever you were.
Yeah.
We were down on the Cape. They came out to visit us for New Year's one year, and I took them to the Cape, and they got to see the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah,
it was one of our beaches. But this one's such a good picture.
It is.
Alan and I. That's probably around 1980 maybe, and we were out jogging, the 2 of us.
Imagine that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the CCI shows in Morgan Hill, Dave, because I also met up with Holger Moore.
Oh, yeah.
I want to say that was just yesterday. It feels like so long ago, but I think it was just yesterday.
Yeah.
And we were talking about those shows and all the effort that went into that and just his history in the industry. He was very young when he was hired by CCE, Custom Chrome Europe, and then he came over and ran Custom Chrome in America. And you remember going to the V-Twin show. Each year we would wait and see what the Custom Chrome booth was going to look like.
Yeah.
What's the theme this year, and it was always like a big deal.
Yeah.
When I was talking to Rob But so Monday we said that the best thing about the V Twin show was the potties.
Oh, for sure.
That's when you socialized, and we would always joke that, oh, we're gonna go to the drag specialties potty and get a free hot dog.
Right.
But
I think
it's really a shame that those shows aren't happening anymore. They were so good for the industry, and I looked forward so much to going, because I would put together. I never had a booth, and I didn't need one because I could just run around. I knew everybody and put deals together at every show.
yeah, for sure. We even as a magazine, we had a booth, and I remember the first year Ironworks had a booth, and we were up on the 3rd floor in like peanut heaven, squeezed at the back with our little 10 by 10.
I bet.
We felt like big deals when we finally got out on the main floor.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So Ron Todd, it says his stepbrother Pete. So
Oh, okay.
Skeeter's
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then let's see, there's somebody else on. Oh, Maul said Skeeter was a master of speed in his own engineering.
Yeah.
True.
He was.
Fair enough.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's a lot of comments on here.
Yeah, a lot of comments.
Somebody else said hi to Marilyn. Let me find the comments. Great idea for a charity.
Oh, Flea says hi.
Yep. Used to work with Rob Christensen. Who's that?
Oh, Ron Christensen at Meekum Auctions.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
He said,
okay.
Yeah, this person commented. Jeremy said Rob.
Yeah.
There was. I love Marilyn. David Cook.
Aw, how sweet is he?
You know who that is?
I do. Yeah, we talked about Evel Knievel bikes.
Oh, okay.
And, I may, when I head back east, I might drop south first and go through the Evel Knievel Museum on my way home, because I haven't seen those folks in a while.
Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, gosh, that's one of those passion projects, one of those stupid things you do because you don't know better.
Yeah.
It was probably right when my magazine went away, and I was going out to the Meekum auction. I had already booked the trip. So Ironworks closed down like New Year's Eve of 2013, and the auction was 4 or 5 days later in Vegas, and I already had the plans made, so I went anyway. And that's when I ran into Kiwi Mike, who had George Sedlak in his booth, and George Sedlak was Evil's original sheet metal painter and helmet painter.
Awesome artist.
Great guy, yeah. I think he's breathed too many solvents over the year, but it only attributes to his charm. Anyway, George was there with his stuff, and then this other guy named Lathan McKay. And he had one of Evil's actual motorcycles there. And I'm like, well, gosh, there's a story there. I want to know more about that. So I start talking to this guy, Lathan, and he's collected up all of this Evel Knievel authentic stuff over like the past 6 or 8 months. And he's like real super creative and just super intelligent, finding all this stuff and sourcing all these things from where it had been lost in collections over the years, because Evel gave everything away. And so trying to pull it all back together, that was Lathan's dream. But he wasn't really keeping an inventory. He didn't remember what he paid for stuff, so it was all over the map. So I stayed in touch with him, and since I didn't have a magazine anymore and I wasn't really all that busy, I started helping him. And so what it kind of morphed into was that ultimately we ended up, pulling the collection together and then showing it in a couple of places. And so that was the genesis of the Evel Knievel Museum. Eventually we bought Evel's big red truck, the Mack truck rig that he dragged out everywhere, and we had it restored. Through that process, we met Mike Patterson, who owns Harley Davidson in Topeka, Kansas, historic HD. What eventually happened is that Mike added on to the dealership to house our collection, and we had an Evel Knievel museum.
That's
Wow,
cool.
That's great.
So it's in Topeka, Kansas.
It is, yes. And everyone says, why Topeka? Because Evel never lived there. No, because that's where we found a partner. And we were sick of hiking that stuff all over the place.
Right. About a year ago, we built a Evel Knievel clone bike.
Sportster.
For a guy in Pennsylvania who is, oh my God, this guy is like the #1 Evel Knievel fan.
Besides Darren McKeek.
Yeah.
Who
right.
Yeah, we
Oh,
recently
yeah.
found out is also a huge Evel Knievel fan.
But this guy has he had a whole Evel Knievel suit made, and he rides around his town with his Evel Knievel helmet and his suit and on his Evel Knievel bike.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I got to meet him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Howie, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to meet. I want to talk to him. So this was an XR750 base build that you guys did?
No, it was an Evo Sportster or 1200 Sportster.
But like it had knobby tires on it, like it was meant to look
it was
like that.
Somewhat of a replica.
Yeah.
Hey, you just said Evo, so that reminds me, I'm starting a new show at the Chit in 2021. So I'm just a dinosaur. Like when EFI came out, it ruined motorcycle shade tree mechanic tuning, you know, because once everything went fuel injected, like it took away that whole carbureted kind of tuning thing.
Yeah.
So I've always loved the Evo platform for its approachability and its simplicity and its reliability. And I've been like kind of beating the drum to do an Evo based show for a couple of years now. And I finally got Dave Zemla at SNS on board with me because he likes that platform too. So we're going to have a custom bike show for Evos.
That's cool.
At the Chip this year.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited about it. We're still kind of framing the concept, and I'm going to see if Bill Dodge will be my hero and come out and because he's used that platform for a lot of customs.
What day are you going to do it on?
I don't know yet. We're still pulling the schedule together. When are you guys doing your paint show?
On Wednesday.
Okay. Well, I'll have to look at the schedule and consider that because it would be cool to have you guys come out.
Yeah. We're building one of my FXRs, and I just took my Evo out and I'm putting a twin cam in it.
Oh, really? So now you have an engine for a new custom, an Evo-based custom.
I already sold it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
but that should get a lot of attention because I mean Evos and all the like pro streets and stuff, those were all Evos.
Yeah,
so.
right. I mean all the SNS motors, the TP motors.
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, you know, they built a lot of those aftermarket engines that went into American Iron Horses and Swifts and Titans and all those bikes, the big dogs. So there's a lot of those engines out there. Not to mention the Harley ones, you know, and they're pretty cheap to buy.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wanted one other comment from Alicia, who met you, Alicia Keyburn. She met you at Mustang when she was out there a few years ago when you were launching the Doug Danger and thing. She does all of our graphic stuff. So she does our paint show artwork and canvases and all that stuff. She is an awesome graphic artist.
Oh, that's great. I remember her.
Yeah, she does an awesome job with all our
I'm just gonna say I got a card right here. So yeah, so she does all of this stuff.
Sweet.
For our paint show, but she said she's commented and said hello to Marilyn.
Well, hello right back, Alicia. I remember that was a great day at Mustang we had.
Yeah, it's too bad, man. I wish Mustang would get on board and get with it.
You know, Mustang, we do design stuff for Mustang, and you know, they just don't get it. You know, whoever's in charge, I hope you're listening. You're missing out.
Yeah.
They really are. You know, did you see the golf cart that we built?
Yes.
For the auction?
I just took the pictures off to upload Marilyn's.
Sorry.
Awesome golf cart. It was a 1970 Harley Davidson golf cart. Yeah, we did it for a charity for the museum. And I asked Mustang to upholster the seats. And they said, no, they didn't have time. It wasn't in their priorities. And I called Mike Corbin, and Mike said, get them out here as soon as you can. We sent it all out to Mike. Mike did an unbelievable job. Did it all in leather. I mean, beautiful. Well, that golf cart got so much, you know, momentum in Sturgis. Everybody saw it. You know, it was at our banquet. It was at our Meet the Masters run. And, you know, I said to Mustang, you guys got to get with it here. You know, I mean, this is social media stuff, and this is going to do nothing but help you, you know? So I hope they're listening and get on the stick, you know? It's just like with, you know, King of the Baggers. You know, Saddleman's got every bike with a
Yeah.
Saddleman seat,
Right.
you know?
And Saddleman does make a nice seat.
Absolutely. And
So it's
you
not
know,
like there's no other good seat manufacturers, so Mustang doesn't have to compete. They
true.
do.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's always competition out there waiting to take your place if you let them have it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, but it also means you have to stay relevant. You have to be a participant.
Right.
But you know, Dave, you remind me of some more motorcycle history. So, you know, when you think about Mustang, yeah, they make a great product and they've made it for a long time. But, you know, I was talking to Mike Corbin about this a couple days ago. It was originally Corbin seats, and Al Simmons worked for Mike Corbin. The two of them together started Corbin Gentry in Massachusetts, right? They weren't in California, they were in New England.
Right.
And when Mike decided to separate and move his company to California and just become Corbin Pacific, Al Simmons became Mustang.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the history of that company.
Right. Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah, and that's partly why we want to support them so much, because they are a Massachusetts-based company and they have a legit factory.
Yeah.
An old factory building with cool wooden floors. That you can go there and get a tour of and see exactly how your seat is made. Like, to me, that's cool because they're not making it in China.
Right.
It's made here in Massachusetts.
And Mustang is under the Kuryakin umbrella now.
Mm-hmm.
So Kuryakin is making all the decisions for Mustang, but I think that they're making the wrong decisions on a lot of this stuff, and get back to their roots and make seats.
And honestly, tout that USA made thing. Why not?
Right.
That's a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Al Simmons, when Al first started Mustang, from 1979 to 1981, I was doing engraving for him. He was sending me pallet loads of stuff to engrave that he was selling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dave, I never knew that.
Yeah. I mean, I would get a tractor trailer would pull up and I would get 2-3 pallet loads of parts, either from Drag Specialties or from Mustang, and we were doing all the engraving on it.
Wow. So that was before you were painting a lot or at the same time?
I was still painting a lot, but I had 4 full-time engravers working for me. Yeah, for 2 years.
Wow, I want to see some pictures of that stuff.
I would love to.
I mean, we still see it.
Yeah.
We come across our engraving all the time. We just had a bike come in that I built in 1987 that's fully engraved, and it's been sold to 3 or 4 different people, and now it's owned by a guy in Michigan who's got a collection. So he sent the bike back out here for us to do a little restoration on it.
So the bike that you had out here this year in Sturgis for Motorcycles is Art.
Yeah.
Yeah, that engraving was from your original days?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it's cool to have history like Mustang does to take advantage of it, but they just don't.
Yeah. Dave, didn't you have one of your bikes turned up at the Donnie Smith show a few years back? It was a bike that you had built and sold, and maybe you got it back?
Yeah.
Nolan's.
Yeah, that was Nolan's bike.
Oh, yeah. Talk about that bike.
That bike, that was one of my very favorite bikes.
Oh, yeah, this year we put that in this. That was in.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that the one? This year we put the Sting was in last year.
Yeah, that was in Michael Lichter's show this year.
Yeah.
And what happened was I sold it to a guy from Wisconsin in 1990, and then about 10 years later, 15 years later, he called me and he said he wanted to sell the bike. So I flew up to Minneapolis, grabbed a truck from one of my buddies there. We drove over to Wisconsin, ended up buying it back. And Nolan wanted it, so I let him buy it back. And I just freshened it up a little. It was still in nice shape. And it's been in Nolan's collection ever since. And then when he passed away, he willed it to Jody and I.
Oh, wow. So it came back home.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's in our showroom. That'll never leave.
Yeah.
And Nolan's shop is still open?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In St. Paul.
Yeah.
Acme Tattoo.
Yeah, so Gabe pretty much runs it now, and T's still there. But yeah, he's busy. They're busy. He's got a good
Yeah.
clientele. Being Nolan's apprentice for so long, he's built himself quite the clientele.
And they've done all your work, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
All right, Marilyn. Well, I don't want to keep you all day. I know
we could
stories.
talk forever, right?
Yeah, I know, and I have to keep cutting these off with people.
I know.
We could just keep going all day long.
It's good. I see Woody at the door. I'm supposed to be doing something anyway, so
Hey,
I better go to work.
Probably like. But thank you very much, Marilyn, for coming on. We really appreciate hearing your side of the stories and hearing about King of the Bag is.
Yeah, no question. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I love talking about all our friends in this industry. Let's keep this history turning around and telling the stories.
We will.
Yeah, you've reminded me of many more stories, Marilyn.
This is what we need. There's so many stories, but it needs something to spark it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate you
coming on, Marilyn.
Okay, thanks, Marilyn.
Have a great one.
You too.
All right, guys, thank you very much for watching our show today on Chopper History, sponsored by Indian Motorcycles and Law Tigers. On Monday, we are going to have a really cool show. We're going to have the infamous Rhett Rotten, and he has his wall. He's setting up his wall at Destination Daytona in Florida permanently. So he's hopefully going to be able to ride in the wall on our show on Monday. So he's got some great stories. He is a true legend in the Wall of Death. He's probably one of the best riders.
Yeah, Rhett is.
in the wall.
I mean, he's an unbelievable rider. You know, he's. So I see him doing stuff that I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, he's quite the showman.
Yeah, he is, and he's a great guy.
Yeah, so we're really looking forward to having Rhett on our show on Monday. So make sure you guys tune in. Tell all your friends. Chopper History Monday at noon Eastern time. And then also we have a really cool guest for next Thursday too. So we'll talk about that on Monday. Make sure you guys tune in Monday for Rhett Rotten, and this will be his first Facebook Live Chopper History show live. So make sure you guys tune in. And shout out to Indian Motorcycles, who is the first champion of King of the Bag is, and Law Tigers.
And you know, we might have another Indian in the house soon.
Yeah, hopefully.
You know, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking more and more about it all the time. I'm thinking about all the cool stuff I can do to it.
Yeah, so I'm turning one over. So, all right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in, commenting, telling us where you're from, everything else. Sorry if I didn't get to your comments, but we will try on Monday again. So have a good weekend, everybody.
Okay, thanks everybody for watching.